Well, it appears, Marty, that we have now evolved into a new kind of Tethysaur mosasaur, and we can take back the oceans from our mosasaur brethren, as we like to call them.
Do I have to play Muffley?
Just do the bit,
Right.
Curses, hydropedaled again. And for any young ones in the audience, that's Dick Dastardly from Weird Wacky Races. If that's, I can't remember the exact title, but if anybody remembers that, it was a good show. It was a good bit of a laugh. And often, yeah, Dick Dastardly, it won't win. Yeah, because, you know, bad guy and all that. But anyways, let's get into the video. How are we doing, everybody? It's your Mosasaur Prince Steel Tethysaurus Yorkshire, and I'm back again with the regular content. So what I'm going to do today is actually discuss a discovery that actually came out in 2025, late 2025, so December last year, that I didn't get through to because obviously I was doing the common name series. So I thought I'd talk about it this week, and we're going to talk about the new Tethysaurian mosasaurid from the south of France, and this guy is called Garamaudo. So what exactly is Garamaudo? Now, Garamaudo is a Tethysaurian mosasaurid, and if you've been following me for quite a while, you already know what these guys are, but for anybody who's new to this, we'll run through them. So Tethysaurian mosasaurids are a subset of mosasaurs. They are small to medium-sized mosasaurs, and they're what we call plesiopedal hydropelvic mosasaurids. So generally they're about 3 to 5 meters, maybe 6 meters for some of the larger animals. Plesiopedal means that they have weight-bearing limbs, so they had fingers, they had arm bones, they didn't have the flippers that mosasaurs typically had. But the other aspect to them, the hydropelvic nature of them, so that basically means they have a pelvis better designed for aquatic locomotion, so, you know, side to side, all that sort of stuff. So the actual weight-bearing limbs didn't actually bear any weight because the pelvis was specially designed for the water. So these were proper aquatic animals. They couldn't return onto land. They couldn't do it. And if they tried, it would look very awkward. It'd be like me getting out of bed. Nobody wants to see that. So Tethysaurians, they range from about 93 to possibly 79 million years ago. So from the Tronine to the early Campanian. They're typically characterised by having a monitor lizard-like body, so they would look like underwater Komodo dragons, but there was obviously some different aspects with them, so smaller limbs in proportion to the rest of the body, reduced pelvises, and some other minor features about their skulls and the internal structure of bones. So they would have had pachyostosis, which just basically means that their bones were thicker, they were a lot thicker, and this helped as ballast. So when they were swimming around and they were holding a lot of air, like, they wouldn't just float to the top, which would, excuse me, which would be very bad for them, because then they get picked off by larger predators. It's not very good. But yeah, Garamaudo joins the ranks of Tethysaurus and Pannoniosaurus, which are the two most famous Tethysaurians and some of the more famous basal mosasaurids. Now, Garamaudo, the name actually refers to a folklore terrifying serpent-like monster that used to terrorise the area. And I apologise, French people, I'm going to butcher this. The Tolabri River. Not exactly sure if I pronounced that right. I do apologise if I haven't. But yeah, this was said to be a terrifying serpent that would have just been stalking those waterways up and down and doing whatever it wanted to. Now, whatever this thing wanted to do, I have no idea. I'm not going to ask it. But Garamaudo is using the exact name for the genus name, which I think is fantastic. Now, the species name, which is bauciensis or bauciensis, I apologise again if I'm not pronouncing that right, but that's from the Bourg-Belair area, which is actually where the type locality is for this animal, where two specimens were found. Now, they've got the holotype and the second specimen, but we'll discuss them in a second. Now, the two specimens of Garamaudo were found in what's known as the Valdonian and Fuvelian succession, which is from the Santonian to the Campanian. It's a series of sort of marls and limestones, you know, lacustrine environment, so not oceanic, but very, you know, it's nearly there. And this was in the southern area of France, in what I've got on screen there. I'm not going to try and pronounce that, but these fossils were discovered very close by to each other, actually about 200 meters, I'll put it on screen, but they're very close to each other, very, very close, and in the same stratigraphical layer, which is why we know that these two actually belong to the same species and not different species. We've got Garamaudo, and we've got this Garamaudo, which turns out to be a fish. Yeah, nobody wants to be a fish. Now, the actual paleo environment that Garamaudo would have lived in would have been a lacustrine environment, so sort of freshwater, a bit of brackish and marine influx here and there from basically from the ocean, where there would be some periodic flooding. So this was a lake environment that experienced periodic flooding and shallowing events, which actually explains the disarticulation of the holotype and the second specimen, with the second specimen being only a vertebrate and the holotype being a collection of vertebrae, limbs, and jaw material, but very disarticulated, which is very unfortunate, but it is what it is. But the type of animals these guys would have lived alongside includes garfish, you would have had coelacanths, you would have turtles, crocodiles, and even on land you would have had a dromaeosaur that would have lived in the same area. So Garamaudo was living a very similar environment to its cousin Pannoniosaurus. Speaking of Pannoniosaurus, well, Garamaudo seems to have lived around the same time as Pannoniosaurus during the Santonian, which means that we've actually increased the number of Tethysaurians living at the same time as each other by, well, just the two at the moment, I believe. Possibly, maybe, who knows. The excavation of these two particular specimens actually occurs over a wide amount of time. So we've got the holotype being actually discovered in 1997, and this included, like I said, skull material, vertebrae, and limb material. The second specimen was actually, again, found 20 meters away from where the first specimen was excavated, and was found actually a lot later. It was actually close to the time of the publication of this particular paper. So, well, not the best record, you know, for mosasaurs, but then again, mosasaurs never have a good record anyways. Sorry guys, but but we've got two specimens of a new species and in close association with each other, so we know that multiple animals were occupying the same environment, which is fantastic. So, being a Tethysaur, Garamaudo was no bigger than what seems to be an estimate of about 2.5 meters, but I suspect that these animals probably could have got bigger, and it's more than likely they would have gotten bigger, maybe 3-4 meters in length, so big animals, especially the fact they were sharing an environment with crocodilians, which probably were the main competition for freshwater Tethysaurians during the Santonian period, i.e. look at Pannoniosaurus. So Garamaudo seems to share a lot of affinities with Pannoniosaurus and another Tethysaurian, that one I've wrote down there. But there are some differences from other Tethysaurians in having, it's got a more sort of strongly curved inward back of the jaw, so basically this bit's more curved inwards, which probably meant that maybe this animal had a stubbier skull than other Tethysaurians. There's differences in the vertebrae, and there's also differences in the proportions of the forelimbs, so there's other differences in there. But Garamaudo seems to be a very typical Tethysaurian, but sort of slightly differently built skull, vertebrae, and reduced forelimbs. So it was almost like the T-Rex of Tethysaurs in a way. The T-Rex of Tethysaurs, I'm going mad. So, like a lot of mosasaurs, Garamaudo seems to have osteosclerosis and pachyostosis. Basically, osteosclerosis is the internal thickening of the bone, pachyostosis is the external thickening of the bone, but this guy seems to have more of the internal thickening of the bone, particularly with the ribs and with the vertebrae, which meant that this animal was probably down in the water column, down towards the bottom of the lake more than, you say, like an Agalosaur. So this animal may have been an ambush predator from lower down, almost like a crocodilian in a way, which would be interesting for the niche partition of this guy and the crocodilians it lived alongside. So yeah, Garamaudo is an interesting new Tethysaurian with typical Tethysaurian features, but does look a bit more different than other Tethysaurs, even though we have a limited amount of material. The one thing that is puzzling about this paper is this animal seems to disappear completely in the younger layers of that particular succession that was found in. After this particular occurrence of this mosasaur, there's no other mosasaurs in that particular succession. And it seems like sharks and crocodiles take over the possible top predator niche compared to this animal. What's influenced that? I have no idea. But something important I do want to highlight about Garamaudo is this. And that is that I believe that the plesiopedal hydropelvic mosasaurs, particularly the Tethysaurians, were outcompeted in the marine realm very early on by other mosasaurs, so your Tylosaurians, your Plioplascarpians, and your very early basal mosasaurians. And I think Garamaudo, being from the Santonian, being around the time where hydropelvic mosasaurs, so Tylosaurus, Mosasaurus, Cladastes, Platycarpus, all those guys, they were getting more successful in the marine realm compared to the basal mosasaurids. So, in my mind, Garamaudo is more evidence of the Tethysaurians being pushed into a more freshwater environment sort of niche compared to their hydropelvic friends. But that's just speculation from here. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video, hope you learned something new, and I'll see you later. Ta-da, bye.